Hello and welcome to the latest edition of the Severe MMA podcast. And I am joined today by UFC Bantamweight, Tony Gravely. Tony, thanks for joining us today. Tony is fighting this coming Saturday night at UFC Vegas 24 against Anthony Birchek. Thanks for taking the time to speak with us today, Tony. How are you doing, man?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me on.
Oh, no problem at all. Tony, before we get talking about fights and your upcoming fight this Saturday night, I just wanted you to give our audience maybe a little bit of background on yourself, how you got into the sport of MMA. I know that you have had a little bit of experience with Taekwondo. Your dad was a Taekwondo instructor, and then you found your way in the wrestling world in high school and went on to perform collegiately as well in the NCAA, I believe. Is that right?
NCAA, yes, sir.
Yeah, perfect. So how did you, I guess, like when you started your wrestling career, well, did you always have like one eye on MMA, or how did you like progress into the sport of MMA?
So I actually liked and wanted to do MMA before I even started wrestling.
Oh, really?
My growing up, and my dad, like you mentioned earlier, was a Taekwondo black belt, so he taught Taekwondo, and so as a child, I was into martial arts probably as soon as I could walk. So everything I remember as a kid was almost fight related. All the movies we watched, a lot of my toys were all fight related, like punching bags, gloves, sock and boppers, all these different things that are fight related. And everything we watched was like martial arts movies. We actually, he probably shouldn't have been letting me watch this, but I started watching like MMA back when I was probably, I want to say I was like 6 or 7 years old. So I was pretty young on watching.
Right.
Like right when UFC kind of started to, before it even got really big, as big as it is now anyway. It was kind of the first of its own. That Pride Fighting Championships were like the two biggest promotions that I remember as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
Pride, I think, is now Risen. Or Ryzen, I'm not sure how it's pronounced.
The Ryzen, I think, yeah. Was there
Japan.
any fighters that really stood out to you when you were watching it back then that like it gave you the motivation maybe to go in and compete, or anyone that you were looking at or who you followed back then?
Yeah, so back then, as a kid, obviously one of the first names that I remember that everybody remembers is Hoist Gracie. He's the first, the first
the
one.
OG.
Yeah, he's the OG, like the pioneer. The first person to not just do well, but be the guy that isn't the biggest guy, isn't the strongest guy, doesn't necessarily look the toughest, and then go out and win fights. So that's obviously one of the first people I can remember watching fight, along with Ken Shamrock and trying to remember who else. The guys now are those guys. A lot of those guys didn't really stick with it. It was kind of like UFC one, maybe like two or three of those guys. A couple like kind of actually continued a career after that. It was kind of like I guess it was pretty brutal back then. It wasn't. Like, it was
a different sport back then than it is now. That's for sure. I'm sure there's a couple of other rules there. You're glad you don't have to follow it, like headbutts and stuff like that from the very start. But you progressed into the wrestling, and I guess question I would have for you is like, how important would you feel that wrestling base that you have built up? How important is that for you, bringing that game into the MMA world? And do you think it's a big advantage that like maybe wrestlers might have going into the sport in comparison to maybe starting in other sports or other martial arts before they go over to MMA?
I think wrestling is the most important base, and you can kind of, I'm maybe a little biased because I wrestle, but if you look at MMA and who all majority of the top fighters, the champions, and all across the board, or most of them are wrestlers. So wrestling, not just the fact that wrestling, it helps control. If you're the wrestler or the dominant grappler, you can control where the fight takes place. If it's on the feet or if it's on the ground. Somebody's a really good striker and they can't grapple and they get taken down. I mean, they can't grapple, and you take them down. What are they going to do? They're kind of in some trouble. And on top of just the physicality of wrestling and what it teaches, just the mental toughness it takes to wrestle. Like I can't tell you how many times I've lost in wrestling, especially when I first started. I probably lost my first 10 or so matches before I ever won my first match.
Right.
And then once I won my first match, it was almost like it clicked, and it was like all those losses didn't matter. And so I learned how to get through failure from the start when it comes to wrestling, because I was never the biggest, I was never the strongest, and I'm still not the biggest and the strongest and most athletic. But it taught me that even though you don't necessarily have these God-given abilities,
Yeah.
that you can still get the better of someone by persevering and having good technique. So I think that just the mental was the starting part. And then as I learned to, stay tough, use the technique. And then once I did start to get strong and faster, it definitely helped out a lot.
Yeah, it sure did. And that sure tells in some of your, watching back some of your fights as well through your career. You like to put on the pressure, and you like to bring a heavy game and pile on the pressure on your opponent. And, Khabib Nurmagomedov, he said recently, that, obviously he's a phenomenal wrestler himself. And he said that a lot of wrestlers are coming into the MMA world right now, and they're wanting to be something else rather than be what they're good at. I found that very interesting, and I found that to be a very good point. Is that something that you are also looking at? Like, you want to concentrate on your wrestling base and then try to integrate everything else into your game around that?
Yeah, that's it. If you, I've seen this a lot. So many fighters or wrestlers that come in, if you have the absolute advantage in wrestling, why not stick to wrestling? Of course you want to evolve, and I train striking just as much as I do wrestling, but as a fighter, as a smart person, and wanting to keep, wanting to do whatever you can to win a fight, you should want to take the fight wherever you have the biggest advantage.
Yeah.
And you see so many fighters that they started as wrestlers and they get a couple of knockouts, and then they get they forget about the wrestling. They forget about what got them there, what separates them. And then it may work for a little bit, and then once they stop using that wrestling, it's like they forget that they're wrestling. They forget that they have this high pedigree of grappling, and then they get knocked out a couple times. And some people, you would think that would make you want to go back. Got knocked out. Maybe I need to go back. Some people do that, but I've
just get hooked to the feeling, I guess, of knocking somebody out and how good that feels, I guess, and you just want to stay doing it again and doing it again, I guess. And Tony, you had a pretty brief amateur career. You started back in 2014, is that correct?
Yeah.
You went around 6-1 as an amateur, is that right? And then just a year after that, you just jumped over to professional ranks. So was that an easy progression over for you? Not normally an amateur career would span a little bit longer than maybe a little over than a year, but you felt that the time was right in 2015 for you to make the jump over into the professional ranks?
Yeah, I think so. I had a short window of amateur fighting, but I think the difference, what made the difference between that quick transition was how serious I took it from the start. Like a lot of amateurs, they get into it and it's kind of a filling out process, as well as getting better. It's a filling out process of if they really want to do, if they really want to fight. And
absolutely.
That's important to know. Like if it's something that you don't want to do, that you don't like doing, you shouldn't do it.
Absolutely.
And I think some people may have longer careers because of that. Or, maybe they feel like they need to progress in certain areas, but everybody's got like a different path on what they feel is best for them. But after a year, I felt like I knew this is what I wanted to do. And I knew that I was capable of starting a professional career and working my way up and building everything that I could to make me a better fighter and a successful fighter as a professional.
And that's exactly what happened. You know, you fought on the regional scene from 2015 until 2019. Then you got the call to compete on Dana White's Contender Series. So, what was it like after putting in all that hard work and all that dedication to finally get that call to go on there and compete against Ray Rodriguez, get the win in front of some family and friends, and of course your wife Kayla was there as well in your corner? Like, what was that feeling like, getting the call, the whole process in and around? You're right on the cusp of the UFC without being there yet. Was there a lot of pressure or everything around that whole fight and everything?
The whole feeling is just phenomenal. You put, even though it, like 2015 through 2019, for a lot of people in MMA, it doesn't seem like that isn't a long period of time. Actually,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of fighters have, they've been fighting for 10 years. I've been fighting for a total of, at the time, had been a total of, I guess, 5 years, 4 or 5 years, four and a half, 5 years or so. And but the amount of work that I put in, the amount of fights that I put in that small amount of time made it feel like it was a long career,
I get you.
And once and on top of that, how I mentioned earlier, watching this as a kid and what it meant to me to dedicate my life to progressing through the sport, and then finally getting that opportunity was like, it was crazy. It was like it really was a dream come true. So getting, and then that fight, leading up to the fight, there actually, honestly, I had less pressure than I did any other fight. I was had the least amount of nerves as any fight. It was kind of like one of those things where you see your goals right in front, like right there in front of you.
For sure.
There's only one person in the way. One person, just one person in the way,
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, there's no way I'm not going to get through this person and get where I want to go, So
Nice.
I was extremely confident in the amount of work that I put in, and my abilities. And, fortunately, I went out there, did what I needed to do, got the finish, and Dana, it was cool.
You got the strange experience, I guess, from a fighter. Normally, if you're a fighter fighting on the regional scene, you're going to build up your resume, build up your record, get those wins, and then maybe somewhere out of the blue, you might receive a call here or there to go. But you got that whole experience on the one night. You fought on the night, you got the win, and you got the call, and you got to speak with Dana, who called you up to the UFC on the same night. So it must have been pretty crazy overall.
It was, and I thought that's how it would be. I thought that I would just get a call out of nowhere, and
yeah,
and that's what I thought was going to happen. But and that's what I really wanted. But looking back on it now, it was a lot. It's a lot more special to have that opportunity to be on there, and for you get to see Dana White himself say, I want this guy to be in the UFC, and that's a cool experience, just
for sure,
that in itself,
Nice. And then just moving on after that, obviously you got the contract. You're scheduled in January 2020 to make your UFC debut. And a lot of fighters might never get the chance to compete in front of their home crowd and everything like that. And you just rocked in there. You took on Brett Johns. Your UFC debut. It was in your home state in North Carolina. And what was that experience like? I know the result didn't really go your way that night against Brett Johns, but it was a really close over and back battle and very gritty performance. And Brett Johns got the better of you that night, unfortunately. But was there any extra added pressure on you, being that it was your UFC debut and you were fighting in your home state and you had tons of people there cheering you on? You were one of the last fighters, I guess, to experience the live crowd experience in 2020. How was that whole experience like for you, Tony?
No, it wasn't really much pressure. I had a buddy back in Virginia tell me, you should only feel pressured when you're asked to do something you're not prepared to do. And that always sticks with me, So I knew that I earned the opportunity to be there, and I knew that, all I had to do was go out there and do what I do every day. And unfortunately I did lose, but overall the experience was amazing. Like,
picked up fight of the night.
And to get fight of the night as well. So I got the opportunity to compete in front of, I'm originally from Virginia, but I went to college in North Carolina. So I have a lot of friends that are from North Carolina. I lived like 30 minutes from used to live 30 minutes from the North Carolina border. So it's
Right,
essentially
right.
home to me.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
the fight that I have in North Carolina is essentially home.
Right.
But it was very close to my hometown. So people from Virginia, North Carolina, everybody from different parts of my life, my friends I had in kindergarten, friends I met in middle school, wrestled with in high school, college, people that were at the current gym that I was at, just a lot of people. And it was phenomenal just getting to hear like them cheer for me, the signs, the chants, you know. If I hadn't lost, it would have been the absolute perfect
Would have been
thing.
perfect
It
for
was still
sure.
perfect, you know, like
Yeah.
I've got, you know, I can't complain at all. It was an amazing experience. And I hope soon that can be something that we get to experience again, but
For sure. Right
I'm
around the
still
corner,
taking the
hopefully.
time.
You said you don't really feel the pressure. It seems to me that you kind of feed off the energy that your friends give to you, your family gives to you, the support that your wife and your family gives to you as well. Um, Going into your last fight, which was in November of last year, when you took on Geraldo de Freitas, that was in front of 0 people. There was nobody in the crowd, and things were so much different. So how did you make the adjustments to your camp, and how was the preparations like that in comparison to fighting in front of a full crowd and maybe under normal circumstances before the pandemic hit?
So actually, like fighting like in the apex with no one is very similar to fighting in the gym. Like when you get cage time in the gym, you know, there's not like there are people around cheering. People are watching. Like
Yeah. Even the last time when you were in the Apex, for the Contender Series, you did have some friends and family there. You know, your parents and your wife and everybody was there looking at it, and that was kind of taken away, I guess, in your last fight against Geraldo de Freitas. So you didn't really find that it was too much of an adjustment just going in there, and everything worked out perfectly for you. Was you happy? Obviously, you got the win on split decision. You were happy with everything that went on with that.
So I mean, I'm not necessarily happy with like the decision. You know, every fighter wants to go out and they want to dominate. They want it to be like a, you know, something.
That was going to be my next question. It was like you have won 7 out of your last 8 fights by finish. And that one, I know you're hungry to get the UFC finish. Were you a little bit frustrated coming out of that fight that it went to a decision and you didn't get the finish?
Part of me was, and a part of me was just happy to get back in the win column. You know,
For sure.
come off a loss, and you just want to. You always say like you want to get that one back.
New studies available
it's not
on
really,
Prolific.
not really getting it back, but you know, you just want to get back in there, do whatever it takes to win.
Yeah.
And I looking back, you know, I wish I would have. You can always say, you know, I wish I would have did this, and I wish I would have did that, and I wish I would have got the knockout, but I didn't. But I'm happy with the fact that I at least got the win. But you know, from now on, this time out, you know, I'm looking for a finish. You know, that's
you're going in there looking for it against Anthony. And just a couple of more questions. I won't keep you too much longer, Tony. Looking forward into this next fight against Anthony Birchek. You recently made the move down to Florida, down to American Top Team. So how's that move been for you? How you've spent obviously a full camp down there in preparation for this upcoming fight. How has been your preparations and your overall experience with American Top Team? It's one of the top gyms in the country, in the US right now and in the world.
It's been great. It's those guys, Dan Lambert, Richie Guerrero, Conan. They make it so easy for a fighter to, once you commit to the gym and you move to the gym, they make it so easy for you to somewhat seamless how they get you in with everyone, introduce you to everybody. Anything you need, they'll do whatever they can to help you. And that on top of having so many, you know, amazing coaches to learn from and practice partners that could, I mean,
it's like Killer's Row down there at ATT exactly. Right now.
Exactly. It's phenomenal. It's crazy the amount of talent there is in there, because each person that you train with, they could just as easily open their own gym right now and be successful, you know, but you've got so many people to learn from, whether it's your coaches, your training partners, and they're pushing you every day. And on top of you training for a fight, they're also training for fights. So you push each other. When Absolutely. You're not training, you're helping them prepare for their fights and vice versa. So it's
you're kind of always staying prepared, I guess, when you're doing that. If you're not preparing yourself, you're preparing somebody else, and you got to be on point all times, I guess.
Exactly.
Nice.
That's exactly
Nice.
it.
Looking ahead at the actual fight itself, how do you see it playing out? What way would you like it to play out? I know you said you're hungry for the finish. Just give me your thoughts on that fight.
And I like the matchup. I think that I fought a lot of grapplers, and he's also another tough grappler. And I don't think it's going to be hard for us to find each other and get going. I don't think we have to chase each other or anything like that.
That seems to be the case with a lot of your fights, Tony. It's like, you're a pressure fighter, and I don't know whether other guys look at your style and want to come out with the same style of pressure, but like your fights are always entertaining. They're always 100 miles an hour, and you're always bringing the heat, the same as your opponent as well. So it sure does show in your fights for sure.
Well, thank you. That's what I like to do. I like to get in there because we came to fight. We didn't come to play around. I'm in here. I want to get the job done and get over it. So, and sometimes it's early. Sometimes it may take 15 minutes, but my goal and my job is always to go in there, push as hard as I can for as long as it takes, and until I get the job done. But this fight, I would like to finish. I feel like I'll finish him either in the second or third round. I think I'll get a TKO or a knockout in the second or third round. Could also get a submission. Anything that I'm just gonna do my best to create damage, and whatever opportunity presents itself, I'll snatch it up.
Perfect.
The way I can.
Tony, are you a fighter that just focuses on the task in hand, or would you like to look a little bit ahead? So let's say, if everything goes to plan on Saturday night, what would your be a focus of attention maybe for the rest of 2021? I've heard you speaking once or twice in interviews and stuff about you're not the biggest guy. Would a move maybe up or down the rankings maybe be a move for you in the future, maybe down to the flyweight division?
Yeah. So, I'm usually a guy that kind of takes it one day at a time, one piece at a time. But lately I've been kind of thinking, I've talked about it. I talked about my wife, some people, my coaches and stuff, and some teammates. And I'm not the biggest fighter, which, it's pros and cons of that. I'm not the biggest, but I've still had a lot of success at 135, even though I'm not the biggest. But I'm thinking about seeing what my body feels like going down to flyweight at 125, just to see, if my body feels the same and it's not, hurting my cardio, my strength, and anything like that. Thinking about going down just to see what it feels like. And, if I feel good, then maybe that's the route I'll go, but haven't fully committed yet. It's hard to, even though I don't cut a lot of weight now, I know that I would have to cut an extra 10 pounds, which, seems like, it's
it would be tough. Yeah, I can see it would be a tough cut. It's easier for me to ask that question than for you to actually go and do it. But, would you think that would be something that you'd be maybe interested in doing it in 2021, or would it be later on, maybe in 2022, or if it happens at all, I guess, or you're just going to wait and see how things go at 135 first?
It would probably be maybe sometime into 2021, maybe beginning 2022. I'm not sure. Just kind of trying to get this fight, focus on this one, and after that I'll see where it goes from there. But, after this one I'll dig a little deeper into it. But for now, I'm just trying to focus on this fight, do the best I can, perform the best I can, and go from there.
Nice. And you do some coaching at Virginia Tech. Is that in the plans? What do you do in your off time when you're not fighting, when you're not training?
So I used to, at my old gym before I moved down to American Top.
You're at Florida full time now, living down there, hey?
Yes, sir. Yes, so we moved down here end of last June. So I used to teach the kids wrestling and grappling at our gym, and also did some private workouts with people that either wanted to learn jiu-jitsu or striking. And but now actually I got back into helping the kids, and Coach Steve Mako, he runs a wrestling camp here, and I just started maybe the past month and a half maybe even 2 months. I can't remember, but I've been helping him with wrestling. That's been cool because wrestling's something that, although I've been doing almost all these things for almost all my life, wrestling's the one that kind of had the biggest impact on my life. It's the one that kind of really straightened me out as a person and helped me understand like the importance of like discipline and focusing on goals and achieving goals. So wrestling is probably the thing that I like the most out of all the things that I do. So it's cool to get to teach the kids some of the things that I know and help them out. And
that can actually be beneficial to your career as well, kind of when you're teaching the basics as well. Hey,
it can, because like when you do something at like a certain level, you almost forget little things like how small things are important. So you kind of have to, especially as a brand new kid, you got to go all the way back down to the very first thing you remember
for sure
learning. So it does help, and it feels good to get to work with the kids. And not only that, is like the kids, they ask questions about what you do, and then they start looking up to the things you do. So it helps keep you
kids can be the worst critics at times,
they can, and they're blunt too. Like
yeah.
If I go out and get knocked out, they'd be like, "Oh yeah, you got knocked out," like that, But on top of that, it helps keep me grounded, and helps keep me like as good of a role model as I can be for these kids if they're watching me. And if I do something crazy after the fight, they're gonna see it. And then so stuff like that. But it helps. I enjoy it.
So when do you head for Vegas, Tony? Are you there? You're in Florida right now? Or are you leaving for Las Vegas tomorrow, the next day? Or we're recording this on Sunday, if anybody is wondering.
So I'm in Florida right now, but we leave Tuesday night for Vegas. So we'll get there. It'll still be Tuesday night. I think maybe like it'll be 10 p.m. their time when we get there. And then we'll be there. I'll weigh in we'll start quarantining once we get there and do the COVID tests. And we'll weigh in on Friday, fight Saturday, and we'll come back on Sunday.
Perfect. Well, I won't take up any more of your time, Tony. I appreciate you sitting down and having a chat with me this afternoon. Is there any sponsors, any shout outs? What are your Twitter, your social media handles? The floor is yours, my friend.
So I'll start with the social media. I could always help to get more followers and things like that. So Tony Gravely 135 is my Twitter, Instagram, and I think also my Facebook athlete page, same thing. I like to thank my wife, and she's always been in my corner in all my fights. And it's just her following me through the journey. It means a lot, to have her support and have her fully commit to this as much as I do. All my coaches and teammates at American Top Team, Dan Lambert, Richie Guerrero, Conan, Primo, all those guys that help, keep the gym running and keep us fighters prepared. All the coaches, my teammates, everybody back home. I live in Florida now, so haven't seen a lot of my family and friends in a while from Virginia and North Carolina. But a lot of those guys, a lot of my former teammates, I've haven't gotten to see those guys, but they still follow me. They still support me. Just want those guys to know I haven't forgot about them, still love them. And I appreciate all the support that they continue to give me.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Tony.
For this platform and opportunity.
Oh, no, and thank you. Likewise, man. We appreciate it over here at Sphere MMA. Just to leave it there, we'll thanks for taking the time to talk to us, Tony. You can see Tony fighting this Saturday night at UFC Vegas 24. He fights Anthony Birchek in the Bantamweight division. Make sure that you tune in and watch him fight. He's always in exciting fights. I always love watching him fight, and I'm looking forward to seeing how he gets on Saturday night. Thank you to everybody for tuning in, and thank you again, Tony, for joining us today.
No problem. Thank you so much, sir.
Perfect.